Huni in the top lane. Rainover. Snowball in the lanes from the jungle. Pole Belter in mid lane, trying to deal the DPS. Wild Turtle shining his shell at AD carry, and Adrian supporting him just behind him on his heels.
And of course, their opponents for our marquee matchup tonight will be TSM. Up top is Hauntzer in the jungle. Svenskeren, mid, Bjergsen, AD carry double lift, support Biofrost, and Coach Park.
That's right, you can't pick Coach Dylan on the other side. I did, but he's still there helping the team out, and both teams are gonna need everything they can going onto the Rift today.
Yeah, we're even hearing just before the game trying to compare the strengths of these teams. Like, it's all really close across the board. And there's 30 wins and 2 losses coming into this matchup. Like, that is an insane ratio for both of these teams.
Yes.
The next most victorious team in North American LCS is Cloud9 with 10. Like, they are so far ahead of the rest of the league right now. It's great to see them hammering against each other in the final week of the regular season.
It has become exceedingly clear as the North American LCS has progressed that these are by far the top 2 best 2 teams in all of North America.
7 weeks ago, these teams played. I am getting ultimate nerd chills right now. I cannot wait to see what actually comes out of this pick ban phase. What do they choose? What is the priority here as TSM faces off against Immortals in Game 1?
Yeah, we were looking at the champion pools before the game, and there's honestly not that many holes for these teams to attack as far as roles go. So right now, it definitely feels like they're targeting bans to the best of their ability. Biofrost's most played support by far was Karma, and then the Rumble would just be for Huni.
I'm pretty curious about the support pools and how they play out, because Immortals have already started to dabble in those Korean-esque melee supports bottom with Adrian, you know, trying a little Tom Kench, a lot of Braum on both sides. I think that Braum is still going to be the most highly sought after here in North America as far as the melee supports go, if it does fall to that, you know, seeing the early Karma ban come down here.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting here is the ban of Sivir by Immortals. Last week, they were very willing to first pick that on the blue side and ban it when they are on the red side, saying it is the most powerful champion in the game. But something about these TSM bans must have thrown them off with the Rumble and Taliyah being so targeted that maybe there's a power pick they don't want to let back over to TSM.
Rek'Sai is still on the table here, and Nidalee's been banned out. So if we do go down the tiers, there it is.
Boom.
All right, that was easy.
Let's go.
Question number 1 answered.
Yeah.
Right.
That's never getting taken out quite a bit. Ashe has been something the AD carries have been going to. The Rek'Sai pick is there. TSM knows the jungler of Immortals. What do they decide to pick 1-2?
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually TSM is going to be picking Gragas just because it's still available and it's a super high priority jungler. 1-2, I think they go relatively generic here.
The other possibility is, of course, Elise. And Svenskeren could use that to try and affect the lanes early. He has been one of those junglers that's worked really well with all of his lanes if they're winning lanes and they're pushing up. But Rainover, if you try and do that against Rek'Sai and you force ganks early on versus a Rek'Sai, Rainover will outfarm you. He will get an experience lead. And so it is a trade-off giving up jungle, which is something that TSM have not done. They've been controlling both sides of the jungle in most of their matches.
Whoa. Wow, well, a lot of crowd control locked in that first lock-in for TSM.
They decided to just go straight with the dual lane, and also with one of Doublelift's lesser played champions. It's not like he doesn't know how to play other AD carries. He has the 21 Lucian games, which everyone loves to point out so far, but like when he's performed on when he's played other AD carries, he's been great. So this is clearly something TSM want to have against Immortals, large amounts of crowd control, so they can dictate the engages.
And it has been TSM who have been kind of following tier lists. And to me, the tier list of the utility AD carries right now is Premier 1, Sivir, all around, then you drop down to Ashe, then you go to Jhin. And so it's kind of TSM once again kind of dropping down that list. And Bjergsen does pick up the Ashe, and we'll have to see what Immortals can answer with. Jhin is definitely a possibility for Wild Turtle. Also been a great sniper.
Also quite reminiscent of what they tried to do against Immortals in Game 3. That crowd control on the Tempered Fate was a Zillion Bomb. Now it's an Ashe Arrow, and there's that Jhin you talked about falling back to AD carries and the Soraka.
Yeah, and I'm getting some flashbacks coming back to the first time these teams played in Week 2. Immortals took Game 2 of that series behind a pretty strong performance by Adrian Soraka.
Yeah.
And Game 3 had some epic ultimates from Biofrost Bard, which were chained with Bjergsen Zillion. I don't think they'll pick it here, but there's a very real chance they pick it at the end of this draft.
Also, I'm just looking at this Champion Select, and this is the second round here from Immortals.
The headphone shows up.
They are picking Soraka and Jhin into the Bard, which is very scary. Just in lane, you know, Bard Flash, Ignite, and stuns are scary for Soraka, but also Bard Ultimate can immediately stop Jhin Ultimate here. We're very far deep into the Champion Select, though, as we're already on the next round with the dive comp of Shen and Hecarim being picked up.
Yeah, and before Immortals locks in these picks, the one thing we did notice is neither of these junglers had played Hecarim yet in the split, even though it's incredibly prevalent on the 6.14 patch in other regions. So this is pretty huge for Svenskeren, and it's going to require him to give a little bit of jungle pressure over to Reignover the very early game, but it could be huge in big team fights against the Jhin and Soraka, who are very vulnerable to an ulting Hecarim.
Definitely curious as to if this dive will work out for them, because TSM have so much initiation. So much initiation into this Jhin. Like, Wild Turtle is going to have to play, Wild Turtle and Adrian are going to have to position extremely well. There's the Malzahar, though. Has not received the nerfs that are on live, by the way. This is still full power on the passive for Malzahar. Very, very strong champion for the mid lane, dropping all the way down here to the last pick. Let's see what Bjergsen's got to try and counter it.
I've seen Zilean actually work fairly well against it, and I think Zilean would fit fairly well with TSM's composition as well. Another point on the Gangplank pick from Immortals, because TSM decided to blind pick the Shen, Gangplank is a spectacular matchup against the Shen. It's almost impossible for the Shen to deny a lot of farm to the Gangplank, and there's the Zilean.
Very similar comp, as we said, to Game 3. 7 weeks ago when these teams matched up, they're running near the same things. It's going to be that Zilean crowd control after a Tempered Fate. But from the side of Immortals as well, they're looking for a fight. They're looking to be pretty global with this composition. If you remember the first time these teams matched up, games 1 and 2 were incredibly volatile. 26-minute games for both teams, and then an extended 42-minute for Game 3. We're expecting the same thing here out of this.
I'm very, very excited for this, because Immortals have been one of the teams that played the quickest and most bloody. The most important thing against Immortals is to get some form of deep vision, some wards, so that you can make informed decisions, because they constantly force fights, and teams have been getting caught up in those constant skirmishes. TSM, though, they've got multiple globals. The one thing they lack here that they have had in most of their other games are super strong lanes and a strong invading jungler. So this is going to be a new flavor.
Exactly. The early pressure is going to be where TSM is most weak. The Shen and the Hecarim can't do that much early. But then if you look at Immortals, they are severely lacking in crowd control when compared to TSM. So that's one thing that Immortals consistently does, which some members of the team aren't that happy about, but they've clearly made the trade-offs for damage and some of the power picks on this patch and early pressure. And we're just going to get to see which one works.
We'll see how it plays out in a game. These two Titans aren't just doing battle on the Rift, but also on social media. Help prove your team is League's finest by voting on Twitter. Hit us up at LOL Esports using the hashtag IMTWin or the hashtag TSMWin. We'll monitor and share the results throughout the series. Expecting to see this one try to be standard for TSM, as they like that lane double lift. Would love to smash his opponent. How are they going to match up? We might just expect to see that lane swap in the beginning. Pretty evened out crowd. I like that. No home turf for either team. We'll see how the vote goes as it comes in. In both of these teams, obviously Scrim Partner is discussing a lot of play back and forth, know each other very well. It's really what it comes down to now that they're on the Rift, and how the team can play the strategy they've been working on.
That is a really good point to bring up, Riv, because these have been the two teams. Yes, they're kind of in a league of their own. They've been practicing with each other so much. Even in the LCS games that we see from both of these teams, they win almost every single match, yet they're very self-critical, and they always have a laundry list of their own mistakes that they're pointing out. Yet no other teams in the LCS have been able to really punish those mistakes in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. You even look at Immortals, they aren't necessarily that happy in post-game interviews. They've never really been elated after a win, and it's because they've kind of been here before. They know what having a 17-1 regular season is like, but the one thing that is different this regular season from last is the fact that they haven't been considered the best team this entire time. It's actually been TSM who's been ranked 1 pretty much the entire split, except for that brief moment last week after TSM lost to Phoenix 1, and Immortals had half a game advantage because they'd won more sets. But right now, it's all about proving to themselves and to TSM that Immortals is better.
Yeah, if you saw that small video of the Immortals team reaction, just watching the loss of TSM to Phoenix 1, extremely hyped up for this. And we will get that lane swap that you're talking about, Riv, the blind swap here. Both junglers starting on their red quadrants. By the way, I highly recommend, if you are doing the Hecarim jungle, even though it has been nerfed on live, Oh, never mind, there's some action.
That's a little tricky.
That's an early exhaust. Hey! Whoa! Dodging out some stars. Haunter almost sees a few himself. So we'll see, he gets out. Usually Haunter's the guy trying to soak up a few XP and hide on the outside, not get right into it.
Yeah, but a lot of times against a Soraka in a lane swap, you don't really respect the Soraka's ability to punish you. He just got a little bit too much damage take from Wild Turtle and greeted a little bit too much for the CS. Ultimately, I don't think it's going to matter that much. He didn't die. He did have to burn his flash, but he got an exhaust, so it's a 1-for-1 summoner trade in that sense, since both top laners were going to teleport anyways.
Yeah, not a lot of respect for Soraka. Jhin, definitely one of the AD carries in the early stages of the game that you have to respect the most. I mean, especially when you're paired with something like Braum, then the kill pressure is more threatening, but you really have to respect those
minions.
Yeah, I mean, people get excited for people just getting low health in tower swaps because there's no champions here to influence. Wild Turtle feels very comfortable not having to sweat. And by the way, both of them with the very standard openings for the lane swaps that we've seen here in North America, where the top laner comes, teleports in on that minion, able to push down the turret a lot quicker. Only difference is that flash that we did see blown from Haunter probably won't have to have a vulnerable lane for quite a while, though. Should be fine. Oh, they actually did not give full gold to Huni, and Haunter will get the full solo gold.
Svenskeren is trying to leech some of this experience, I think, because Immortals got so low and they were assuming Wild Turtle was going back in base. You can definitely tell these teams have done their fair share of lane swapping, so everyone's trying to take shortcuts to be as efficient as possible and leech as much experience as they can.
Looks like Rainover may get an upper hand on the jungle here for just a little bit, being able to push out Svenskeren, as you said, prepping out a few waves that Double Lift will now start to clean up. And things now start to pan out a little bit after the turrets fall. After, I should say, the bottom turret falls for TSM and the top for Immortals.
Yeah, so far, actually, I don't think this is bad for TSM. Basically, I think they would have gotten into some trouble if Svenskeren was going to have to really compete with Rainover thus far, but it's been a pretty farmed opening. Svenskeren's been able to go back and get the Hunter's Potion, which is really critical on Hecarim since he is fairly spammy in the jungle. And as long as he's staying close with Rainover, it's not a big deal yet.
Yeah, unless you are standard lanes and you get a super early first blood on Hecarim, you definitely do need the extra mana. Yeah, it's still in there. He got it on the edge.
Good job, Pobelter.
Using those warding mechanics, you know, if you click your ward and then hover over the brush, your mouser will turn green, letting you know just the edge of the brush so you can get maximum vision out. Those are the intense mechanical plays during lane swap that we gotta keep track of.
One more turret trade. Mid has been played quite evenly. This game's going to be all about who's got control of, I guess, a Cloud Drake when it comes back up, or who can actually break this kind of solid strategy that both teams are using.
Yeah, we've seen some other lane swaps go where, like, since one team is top, the other team takes Drake, but that actually comes at a significant tempo advantage. So I do feel like these teams are playing with a lot of mutual respect and, you know, not necessarily trying to rush a Cloud Drake super early. But now that we're 5.5 minutes in, there's a little bit more experience and levels, so they have more skills to take this Drake, and getting a Cloud Drake this early would really help Immortals, but they also have to realize how dangerous it could be.
Yeah, especially with Pobelter just backing.
Yeah, and it's because, you know, no longer do you trade early Rift Herald for early Drake. The team on the top side of the map knows that Rift Herald doesn't come up until the 6-minute mark, so they're so much more willing to come contest that early dragon rather than just trade it over kind of passively. And people definitely scared off of the early one here. Let's see, Haunter on that top side, just gonna try and control the wave. Has actually one little caveat here, is the pink ward up in the side brush, which is actually pretty rare to check. Both junglers are on the top side as well, and this is a very open lane. Possibility, I mean, we talked about Jhin, you know, you really do have to respect him as an AD carry for actually getting picks, and if there is a jungle gank, he's so good at helping lock someone down, even in the early stages with the long-range snares.
TSM will be looking to save with a Chrono Shift or a Tempered Fate there. Haunter here. Actually, TSM almost looking for like a level 6 team. Could be very explosive for both sides when we see that.
Great defensive play from Haunter, and Sven trying to defend his jungle here.
Yeah, definitely losing a little bit of control. I like the fact that Rainover is syncing with Adrian for aggression, so they're already making sure the top laner isn't there for a collapse, and that allows Reignover to get early access to this red buff. So
yeah,
it's a very nice job by Reignover, taking advantage of some of his early power.
Yeah, he is also half a level ahead with the farm that he's chosen to go for, more Gromps rather than some lane minions for Sven. So Sven is going to be a little bit under leveled trying to get to that 6, but Hanser now, with the defensive play, he was able to avoid all the pressure top and soak up. He'll be ready with the Shen ultimate in the next few minutes.
Svenskeren knowing exactly where he can find access. He's got to be a little careful because Rek'Sai has the map control. This could end up being a fight.
It is TSM's side, though, because it was a lane swap, right? And they do have their duo down on that side. So while it is a little bit risky with the long range and globals that Immortals can add, this is the TSM half of the lane swap mat. And Jin goes back up to the top side to try and push Hanser, break that freeze that he has. So because there's Jin up on the top side, fairly easy break here for TSM.
Yeah, and I think that is generally smart play by TSM. Immortals obviously chose the top side right there to try to push in Hanser and maybe get a little bit more farm for Huni, but they haven't won that either. Huni's level 4 to Hanser's level 5. The Cloud Drake going over now, which is 25 out of combat move speed, against an Immortals team who is already going to be a little bit lower in initiation. Yeah. I think that is an incredibly valuable Drake for TSM to take this early, and does give them a somewhat meaningful advantage.
Hanser has at least a full level in experience, like bar to bar, so he's going to have that 6 here. They have a pretty good window to activate without Huni having all of it.
Yeah, they went over a little bit of the stats in the intro about Hanser versus Huni. Both of them very big carries for their teams this season, but I think to me the biggest difference, why I actually have really liked Hanser's recent play, is his ability not just to play really good offense. Huni's had great kill numbers and damage numbers, but Hanser has been willing to soak up enemy pressure, jungle ganks, even support and AD carry ganks for his side. He's played very safe, giving up farm because of it. Here we go, though.
Tempered Fate not there yet, so they're going to have to hopefully get through the journey. Almost gave him the distance he needed to hit double lift, but they get out safe.
The journey lets you know where he's going to be coming out the other side, and he still missed a shot. Either way.
A little nerves there.
Yeah. Double lift was still going to have heal and stuff if he did get a little bit low, but I would say no real harm done. Oh my. Svenskeren! What is he doing?
He gets zeroed out here. Wow, they're going to put a lot of resource on this one. Svenskeren, ult over. Chrono shift would have kept him alive anyways, or rather...
Yeah. So there were a couple small timings there where you could see the decision-making and the communication from TSM. Svenskeren wanted to say, and he was hesitating to use his ult to get out because Bjergsen was communicating, I'm coming over with Zillion ult, maybe we can fight this. We also have Ash Arrow Global coming in. There are so many pieces in this TSM comp that they're trying to coordinate there, and they didn't necessarily have the communication before Svenskeren went on for that kind of abrasive steal, a little bit heavy-handed there, decided just to, in the spur of the moment, to go for it. But they almost were able to coordinate and clean it up. Immortals do get a few cooldowns out of it, though.
Very, very close to being a fight, but I do feel like Pobelter very quickly, all things Svenskeren, just kind of took away TSM from their setup opportunity. Plus the sync wasn't quite there. They would have needed Bjergsen to be a little bit closer.
Oh, Hanser knows the advantage, his boundaries against Huni, and he can push them right now, 2 levels ahead. Huni stands to soak up this CS over and over now, but still hasn't been able to help the team too much. Usually see Immortals on the forefront of these plays. It looks like they're taking hits just about everywhere on the map. Still 17,000 across the board, though. 2 turrets to each team. It seems like TSM has been able to get under the skin of Immortals a little bit more, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very, very minute lead here so far for TSM. It is a little bit of gold plus that Cloud Drake that we do have to remember is sitting in the bank for them. Now, where this game really is going to break open, though, is going to be which team does have the vision and gets the pick. I talked about really early on in Champion Select trying to make informed decisions versus Immortals with some deep wards. Both of these teams have so many tools to try and pick someone off if they're out of position, if they're in an extended lane. Huni, while we talk about him, he's a little bit down in farm and he's just trying to cash in on the bank plank right now. He also has that global. While it's not traveling there himself, he can add the ultimate, and they both do have teleport. Here goes the gank on the top lane, though.
Reignover is going to give him a little bit of hell here. Be able to close the distance very nicely for himself. Rainover might have to think twice.
We have to keep in mind they're trading map pressure for this as well. Like TSM was ahead on tempo in the bottom lane because they're technically getting some turret pressure. And with Drake coming up in 2 minutes, the vision control you were just talking about, Kobe, the 3 pink wards that TSM has would be placeable in the Immortals jungle and can give them control of the Infernal Drake.
Yeah, I really like how Haunter's playing this. I want to re-emphasize that theme of him.
There's the defense.
You know, soaking enemy pressure. And even there, he's going for trades. He's going for advantageous trades. Taking health off of the jungler does matter. Even though he's not going to 2 versus 1 those guys and actually kill someone, he's not using a lot of his health by using his shield and the Spirit's Refuge in those little trades with Rainover. And he's taking up more of their time while TSM do work on that red quadrant that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it almost looks like Immortals is taking a very late game approach to this. The scaling of Gangplank and Malzahar is pretty immense, and you could make the argument that Shen and Hecarim have, you know, minor late game fall off, even though if Hecarim gets going, he really gets going. It just, based on the way they're playing this, with Huni going for a call, and the way they're just kind of trading away some of the Drakes, I think it looks like Immortals isn't looking to make a power play early.
Yeah, I think that they're just maybe a little bit cautious. No team really has this, like, super power spike later that they're going to cash into, and it is going to be so much about this setup. We keep on saying, you know, how close this game is right now. It's getting pretty tense, and neither team wants to make that big mistake that's going to blow it wide open because it is so heavily punishable by the long-range abilities that both teams are, you know, packing right now. If we look to the late game and Immortals do run into this TSM late game comp, ooh, man, Sven gets a poor trade right there with Rainover.
Yeah, that's actually really critical because TSM no longer has any pink wards in the territory of Immortals. Svenskeren is at half health with no real way of healing up, and maybe they try and fight them over this blue buff because pretty much everyone could have access to this fight.
And be careful about losing health over a blue buff fight if an Infernal Drake is coming up. That is extremely important for the mid game here. Trying to bait a little bit.
Bartol misses. Are they still going to go there, Shen?
Adrian gets the onslaught of shadows. He's got 1 bomb on him. It's going to be Haunter coming in with the ultimate. Adrian's getting his way out, but Haunter can finish that kill. Hooney's looking to set up some barrels, but now he gets targeted by Svenskeren. Double lift over the wall with Ashe. Nobody has fallen yet. Svenskeren dodges just to the right, and everybody lives.
Bazillion and the Soraka saves right there. Oh, they're not done, actually.
Yeah, it's because the Infernal Drake is still there, but no one has the resources of it. So it's a battle between you don't want to recall too early, but you also don't want to stick around too long so the other team can heal up. Immortals is sticking around for the blue buff, maybe more.
Oh, everybody's going to head right back out onto the field because of that. There is also a big TSM wave pushing top. You always got to keep track of the side waves when you're playing Immortals. Immortals will constantly force these skirmishes and try and hope that you get caught up in the aggression and lose track of those minion waves.
We say that, but against every other team, it's Immortals wave that's pushing in. Here, it's Immortals that has to catch the wave. When the top laner is teleported into that fight, Haunter was 2 levels above Huni and brought more power to that fight. So both these teams are spectacular early game and great at wave manipulation. In this particular case, it was the top wave that was actually in favor of TSM, and that could potentially give them the Drake.
Now, a big difference in that fight with the next fight is that the dives... Uh-oh, never mind.
Rainover's coming. Huni would have no way of joining this fight, whereas Haunter still has teleport.
Yeah, Cannon Barrage is still down. Hooney's teleport is down. He's starting to walk over here.
There it is.
TP from Haunter.
So TSM would have to rush the Drake right now and then dare Immortals to 4v5. Rainover would then have to try to steal. It would be incredibly risky for Immortals to do so.
Good zoning there from Bjergsen, but Rainover goes inside.
The Drake resets.
Oh, crushed in the face, takes an arrow to the kisser. And it looks like he's going to be able to get out tanky enough to survive, but tanky enough to fight is the question.
They're
Not for
low.
the Dragon. Biofrost falls. It may be a 1-for-1. Oh, that's going to be Chrono Shift bringing him back up. TSM maybe cannot afford to help Haunter here. He breaks enough distance, and Rainover actually stayed alive. Oh, they miss Pobelter. The onslaught goes in as well. They miss a few, but still feel like they can get the advantage. And Bjergsen's hooking her on the outside, off on the wing, as they just yo-yo back and forth in this fight.
There are so many skill shots that TSM is trying to dodge here. They kill the barrel, they go back at Uni.
Double taunt right on the turtle. A few more hits. There's the heal from Adrian. Turtle's on the outside now, getting the DPS delivered. And nobody wants the package on TSM. They all back up. Hooney looking for a good barrel placement, but he's all out of powder, and they can't do anything. The grenade bounces across. and they can't decide whether they want in or whether they want out. So TSM is gonna decide for him. A double kill for Double Lift. He's looking for a triple with the team to set it up. One bomb. Bjergsen doesn't have the mana. Svenskeren charges forward, and the auto attack comes through from Bjergsen.
The trepid play from both teams here. Each team just throwing jab after jab after jab for 30 seconds straight, and they finally break it open. TSM gets the extra kills and start. Uh-oh, Rainover still fighting over wards here with Bio, who was the first person to go down in that fight.
Both teams were pushing incredibly hard to try and make that happen. And maybe it seemed like TSM would have taken too much damage for this Drake because Huni is slowly running over, and with the Drake resetting, TSM takes a lot of poke for Immortals, but they also hit a lot of Rainover for damage. But those little Voidlings actually stack up and get TSM quite low during this fight. So then the root lands from Wild Turtle, and it looks like with the flash from Pobelter, it's all going to turn. That's when the patience of Bjergsen kicks in with the chrono shift onto Shen, and it delays. That's really all they were trying to do as the poke was flying back and forth.
And watch the Wild Turtle shots. He's going for Bjergsen over on the other side, and everyone gets out of the Jhin ultimate in time. So Double F, who is extremely low, gets to live and didn't have to blow his heal. He saves it for the Gangplank ultimate.
Yeah, every Jhin shot, all the barrows that would go down, so many jukes going on there. Bjergsen's low.
Tries to turn back time on this one. Oh,
Can he
nice
time that?
Equinox right on. The Temper Fate as well coming through. Bjergsen walks out of that one. A few ultimates used, though. They might lose pressure here in mid.
Yep, a lot of cooldowns burned here. This is, again, Double Lift pushing a side lane. This is one of those things that people have been talking about for a long time during the season, that some other team might be able to punish, but TSM have not been punished for it so far in the North American LCS. Immortals are trying to take a turret for it, though.
Rainover got turret aggro, and we have to remember, even though Immortals does have the Malzahar and the Jhin to initiate, both of their ultimates were down right there, and the level of initiation on Immortals is not the same as TSM. So when TSM has 3 people defending the mid turret, it's much harder for Immortals to punish, and TSM holds that while still getting the wave pressure.
It's one of the things I love about it. It's always good to see a good turret dive, but when you have teams that are this far ahead in macro and moving around the map, you get those huge fights at Dragon. Because nobody dies otherwise. They move well, they ward well, we get those big Dragon fights. And that's where we're going to see TSM possibly continue to catapult.
Definitely an exciting skirmish there for
Yes.
the last couple minutes. I have to say, there's been a big change, though. Huge breakpoint right now for Hecarim. Jungle Hecarim, he build the Trinity Force before jungle item here for Svenskeren. And one of the biggest breaking points in this, team fight battle is going to be, can Svenskeren and Hauntzer, as this backline dive, actually kill the Jhin or Soraka? In the early stages in that blue quadrant jungle fight that they had, they didn't have enough to finish off Adrian, and without killing the Soraka, the heals come through. Now he's got Trinity Force, and they might be able to kill one of those backline targets.
Yeah, and also the cost of not getting the kill is pretty disastrous. It's so hard to initiate on a team with Malzahar if you can't burst people quickly, because the sustained ramping damage from a Malzahar as the fight progresses and you get more Void Swarms spawned and you get Malefic Visions transferring is really snowbally in that sense. So I think it's very critical that Svenskeren stay ahead in this game, and Rainover's doing his best to keep him down, but because that Trinity Force is completed, Svenskeren has an opportunity.
I definitely agree. One of the biggest pain points for Jhin players are huge tanks. And if there's a Shen and Hecarim that could also be revived that are diving you, it makes playing Jhin pretty hard, trying to do what he wants to do. Stay in the back, try and get snipes, and continue to DPS. He will be under harassment. Rainover, though, is also going to be the front line here for Immortals, pretty much always building that full tank and trying to be the CC for them, try and set it up.
There's a possibility that Wild Turtle doesn't have a chance to move, especially with Biofrost being able to start with a Tempered Fate. Very well-rounded out engaged composition.
Yeah.
As TSM continues to pressure a little bit inside Immortals jungle.
It's a couple reasons I really like the Zillion in this team composition. A is the inbuilt synergy between Bard, where if you land the Tempered Fate, you're going to get a guaranteed Zillion star on the backside. But also just because I think Zillion is one of the lesser-known answers to Malzahar on this patch. You can do well in lane, and also if it's an isolated pick, Zillion can obviously stop that with the ultimate. Or if the Malzahar passives down, you can stun the Malz right out of the ultimate and still get a bunch of damage. So really like the synergy from TSM, but they do have to still execute at a very high level to make it work.
Right, we look at it, theoretically, there are a lot of stationary targets that are perfect double bomb opportunities, right? Chuck a bunch of them on there. However, in practice, you have to dodge so much on both sides. And by the way, if we talk about breakpoints, there are also some pretty good ones for Jhin here, for Immortals. If we look at Immortals' side, Jin is going with that flat armor penetration build, and this is the huge spike where you just complete Ghostblade, and even you get the first part of your next flat penetration items. You know, upgrading those, they still stay at 10 more for the rest of the item. Right now, he's got a huge amount, but Reignover's taking a lot of harassment.
Well, 20% of his health for a ward.
Yeah, and this is a stacking Infernal Drake, but the timing is perfect for TSM. They have the pink wards. Huni's still level 10, so he doesn't even have the second tick of his ultimate. So Reignover's trying desperately to get the vision control back, but TSM's just not giving it up.
Complete Drake control from TSM as Reignover trying to find a way through the wards and through the constant harassment here, unable to do so as Immortals give up another one.
Game 1 in week 2, these teams faced off. TSM got 3 Infernals, 2 in a row, which means you have to fight for the third one. They're able to force Immortals' hands, and they're able to grab now an advantage out of that. So now with 3 Dragons overall, 2 of those being Infernal, they're going to have to go for the next one again.
I think this is super fortunate for TSM as well, because one of the big breaking points in this game is whether or not Svenskeren and Hanser can get the kill onto Wild, Internal, and Adrian before the healing would start. And 2 to 3 Infernal Drakes, which increases the attack damage and ability power, will help that in a small sense.
Yeah, they don't have too many items contributing to that stat.
I was just thinking that. They got the Trinity Force, but Bjergsen and Double have to be doing more damage.
So here's what you could say. If they have bombs on their heads when they go in, then Bjergsen's extra AP will... Well, there you go.
Yeah. It does speak, though, to TSM's overall Drake.
Oh, they're going for a pick? Okay.
Adrian flashed immediately because he knows if he gets caught by that Bard ultimate, since Azilian was near, he'd be completely dead. Oh, boy.
She's going to be, I was going to say, stunned on the other side. Gets 1 bomb under the next. And TSM looking to get that vision over Baron so they can toy with it, maybe get a bait onto Immortals.
It hasn't been nerfed yet. Double Up was trying to hit the passive with a volley there to get it to drop and then arrow, but it lasts a full second still. So it was still on, immune to the arrow, and TSM are out of the long-range picks from Bard and Ashe.
And you could see how much Wild Turtle was doing damage-wise just with those few skill shots. Pretty much the only person that is somewhat immune to that armor penetration build is going to be Hanser, because with Svenskeren going for the Trinity Force, even when he completes his Cinderhulk, he has no armor items as of yet.
Opening up and looking for those shots.
No Shen to block right now.
Give me some room. I don't know if they'll actually
damage.
be able to touch too much on the turret after that. Now Turtle without it all, pretty low on mana. To deliver his last bullet. Sitting right now about 1,300 gold behind Doublelift. Having a very reminiscent game to the first time they faced Immortals. Doublelift with early kills and able to help start a lot of these fights and be behind it with the DPS.
Yeah, TSM now trying to use the pressure that they do have with the minion waves, which, you know, they've had a decent amount of control over both side waves. It's just that Immortals have been putting a lot of wards down on the middle side of the map. So every time TSM do get control, they have to switch over and rotate back to the mid lane to try and clear out all this Immortals vision. Now that they've done their dirty work here, their chores of trying to clean that up, now they can try and pressure, focus on this mid lane turret, and we may get a collapse.
With Wild Turtle top, though, you'd think TSM would be looking for the initiation. Good Gangplank ultimate to zone them off.
Yeah, wave clear there with the ultimate. Reignover also hovering around, doesn't actually see the pink ward because he's underground right now. So not going to be alerted to that or try and clear it out. Wild Turtle heading from base now with the completed Duskblade. So he also has that extra potential for a kill on someone. He does get the auto with the missing health.
Nice for him. He's been forced to fight pretty much an item down here as he's finishing that. Quick level up for Svenskeren as Reignover. Once again, he's been quite far forward for these engages. It takes a while to see the team come on the screen.
Trying to get Biofrost.
Back over, gets a flash out. Svenskeren and Biofrost very far out to the right, and that hit on Svenskeren could make the chase go further.
Immortals are winning in health right now, so they've chased TSM off of the battlefield. Problem for them is that there's no Drake up, which would be really easy to take, and they're trying to siege here. Bjergsen and Doublelift working on the wave clear.
They still have a catch from Pobelter that could be utilized, but maybe they catch Reignover. Locked down under the turret, but he still takes it up, even though it heats up. There's the lockdown on a Bjergsen. Chrono shifted. Svenskeren deters the back line of the fight with an onslaught of shadows, and that scatters Immortals. They don't want it anymore. The communication has been just completely knocked out, and now they regroup. Free look at the fight. Temper Fate misses. And Immortals still turning around to look for the attacks.
These are being decided by such slim margins. Adrian's out of mana. Pobelter's low on mana, but they want the turret.
I love the trade of cooldowns here too. Oh,
He flashed!
They got him! He killed him, double lift!
Vision wasn't there right away for him, but looks like they get it, and they'll keep pressuring.
Yeah, it's surprising, right? Because usually you're used to flash ultimates from Malzahar, but that was bold. Pobelter going for the flash Q there, and able to land it on the double lift, knowing that he didn't have a flash of his own to dodge it, and Call of the Void, double lift answers.
The long-range damage that Immortals is throwing out makes the impetus on TSM to actually get these engages off. So long before this, you can see how TSM actually takes a significant amount of poke. Biofrost gets hit by Jin, so Rainova flashes in. And yes, Biofrost is able to survive, but that just allows Immortals a relative amount of freedom. All the ultimate shots have to be absorbed by Svenskeren to save Biofrost, but as you mentioned, he doesn't have armor yet, so that fourth crit nearly kills him as well. So really, the effective members that TSM can fight with dwindles just because of the long-range poke from Immortals.
And it's so fun to watch these fights as they go so long because of the trade of these cooldowns. And there's still a bunch of ultimates left on TSM side, even though they're down in health. The taunt under the turret here, they have the confidence to go for that because Bjergsen still has his revive. And then the flank from Svenskeren, which is so ridiculously risky.
He's so low on health, and the exhaust even came out, but he hit all of his spells at the right time. But you really do have to credit Pobelter's Malzahar just pumping out damage right here. Like, unless they're engaging on him as well, they're going to be vulnerable to a lot of that return damage.
And you look back at that fight and you say, wait, we're fighting against a Soraka for a long time. They're probably healing. So Immortals loving to stay in those long engagements. We'll see. This is where we thought TSM could force Immortals' hand, but Immortals is setting up around this Infernal.
Yeah, nearly every relevant ultimate would be up, and it's Immortals that has the significant vision control, and they're going to open up with some poke and an engage.
Then Scarin gets the shield early. That's going to be the Stand United. Haunts are now in the front line.
They kill double!
He drops Svenskeren immediately. Double Lift doesn't get the chrono shift, so he's down permanently. Svenskeren may follow an ultimate out, and he gets the Dustplate knockdown as well.
Now Immortals have control of the map, and they actually are going for Baron side rather than the Infernal Drake right now. It's a little bit more risky, but there's no smite on TSM side and no AD carry.
Man, the flank from Huni there to take double lift down, but TSM will persist. They're trying to stop this without much damage.
Rainover hitting but looking. They're communicating to stop if TSM comes in.
Miss taunt.
Smites are there. Jungler's not for Svenskeren, so no 50-50. You're right, TSM has to turn tail, but it may have been too late. Pobelter with the Rylai's is not able to connect anything. And Immortals fizzles out there, but they grab the Baron to take the lead.
Haunts are still trying to get out of this one as Immortals transition down to the Infernal Drake, looking to pick that one up too, as some of the members use their Baron-empowered recalls to go heal. And Immortals is going to keep vision until they try and get back. TSM, though, they're looking like they might try and rush it, as Svenskeren's headed down with the smite as well. This could be another fight, though, because Huni still has teleport.
Yeah, and his ult is coming up soon. Even if TSM get this Drake, I wouldn't be too surprised to see Immortals try and chase for a fight.
There's the teleport.
There's your third Inferno, last spawn of the game for that dragon as TSM run away with it for their lives. And they may not be able to save it. That's going to be Fire at Will. Longer hit on the Cannon Barrage. More damage coming out from Huni. And it looks like they try to solidify some kills on the double lift. He's down, he's up, and he's down again. Now onto Haunter. They're able to drop him. And Immortals is going right back through the batting order after TSM get another Infernal.
That is going to be huge because they have Baron to push with now, so they can take a bunch of structures as well, and this gold lead is going to balloon here for Immortals.
Yeah, this power play by Immortals is very impressive. They're never allowing TSM the proper setup, and they're always putting TSM on their back foot. Despite TSM being the team with triple Infernal Drakes, they could potentially get the inhibitor off of this push.
Absolutely explosive stuff from Immortals here in the last few minutes, not even giving TSM time to recoup with a full 5 members in each one of these fights. Huni has to be very careful. The damage also being given to him. He goes down from Bjergsen. Turtle, he's got to back up more. They get the chrono shift over onto Svenskeren. And Immortals may not be able to hold this much longer. Pobelter's going down. Svenskeren wants to chase, and they may be able to stop the backs here.
Oh, Malfresh just barely shorts it. That might have been max range. I don't know. Haunter, though.
At TP, the 1-2-3 rips Turtle out of his shell. And it looks like they're going to use it to beat Rainover's head in. They get another bomb. They get the kill. They're actually making Svenskeren big in this sense. And now it's on to Adrian. What are TSM going to work after this?
Wow. They come storming back out of the base. And TSM now can answer some turrets. I don't think they can get all the way to inhibitors, but they can get a ton of gold back. And as you said, they're the team with the 4 dragon advantage.
Yeah, but we also have to keep in mind, like, the people that are benefiting from the attack damage and ability power are far fewer than some of the more aggressive teams we've seen. So it definitely caught Huni off guard when that bomb killed them, because if Immortals would have known that Huni was dying there, they pull out of the base long before Huni dies as soon as that bomb lands, and really Immortals is punished for over-aggression.
All right, so here's where we're gonna say the extended stay of Immortals inside TSM's base.
Yeah, and they're like, oh man, we have to run, but Svenskeren is all about it, goes right for Wild Turtle, the Zillion ultimate is true, and then the Ashe ult comes through and catches Pobelter. That's really the breaking point for the ace, but it just keeps going, guys.
All right. Ult on.
Okay, he
Flashes up.
Yeah.
And he's out of there. Puts on the quick shoes.
I have to say, this is a much more frantic game than I expected.
Yes.
From Immortals and TSM, I would say that these teams are not playing as clean as they have against a lot of the other opposition. I'm not sure whether that's because they're matching each other or if they're just a little bit nervous because they're pushing each other really hard but making a lot of mistakes.
When you feel like you have the upper hand and the full team is behind you, sometimes you just keep going for it. And it seems like both teams are riding on the same mentality right now. 11-6 as things seem to calm down, but the action's going to return right in the top lane here, 33 minutes in. And TSM is trying to put the pressure back down.
That pick is huge. This one
That's
could be
onto
too.
Adrian. Reignover tries to get himself as a meatball in between. Svenskeren farther to the back line with the ult. They drop Adrian immediately, and Reignover may go down as well, trying to be a bodyguard. They have everything they need on the side of TSM, especially the members of Immortals falling right in front of them.
It all starts with Pobelter getting picked off, and it's really just been all downhill since Immortals was pushing that inhibitor. TSM did also get very low, though, from that, so I don't know how much they're going to be able to accomplish.
Now we're seeing the ineffectiveness of the late game Jhin also versus people with lots of health and lots of armor as well. People, I mean, the front line here for TSM just stands in front, and they can have a protected exit as they leave behind ruins of Immortal space.
Couple things, though. Huni's getting incredibly strong. His damage, we already saw before he even completed his Infinity Edge, was able to one-shot Doublelift in teamfights.
Right.
The damage from TSM, even though they have 3 Infernal Drakes, does look like it's falling off a little bit. Unless Bjergsen gets clean double bombs, if Doublelift is focused, TSM's damage does seem to disappear a little bit.
Everybody gets true damage, though, if the Elder Dragon goes to TSM. That will not fall off, and that is going to be a pretty big point of conflict here on Summoner's Rift, as both Baron and Elder Dragon are coming up. Immortals can't afford really to trade those at the moment, because whichever one TSM gets would be a pretty big swing for them, and have to sit around waiting for a pick.
I still think this is going to be incredibly close. For all the over pushes that Immortals have had, for all the Drakes that TSM has picked up in this game, it can still very easily just come down to this fight at Elder Drake. TSM, while they do have some of the tools to engage on the Soraka, are just forced to move into a Malzahar gangplank, which is incredibly difficult, and it leaves the door open for Immortals to get a lot of damage off. If any poke lands on TSM before the fight, they don't necessarily have the sustain to deal with it either. So these 4 Drakes, while sometimes they could be, you know, a game clincher, are nowhere near that in this match.
And it's not just the back line of TSM that have to worry about those barrel explosions from Huni critting on them. The front line, it shreds their armor as well. It will be able to take big chunks out of the front line of TSM. And if there's an extended engage where Immortals are chunking down the front line, then backing off, they have Soraka, they can heal it back up and look for an engage on softened frontline members of TSM. But here we go.
Yeah, TSM needs a clean engage.
Straight back to Turtle. Haunts are on Svenskeren as well. They got the stand united on the horse, and they're going for the back line.
They didn't kill him.
Like that. Rocket of the Iron Solari is off, and Svenskeren gets taken down. Now Immortals has a chance to look at the fight. Priority target. What do they want next? Hauntzer's in range. Hauntzer's going to be going down, and TSM tried to bite off more than they could chew.
What front line? It's all gone for TSM here, and Immortals now control the 2 biggest objectives on the map. They can take the Elder Dragon first. TSM, are they going to risk a trade?
TSM needed the clean engage for that one, and they couldn't get it. And then you saw everything we talked about come to fruition there with Immortals coming back. I think TSM want to try the trade, but it's way too risky because since they lost their entire front line, they would have no way of warding off an Immortals collapse.
Timers don't match up. There's nobody to tank Baron. There's also no smite for them. It would actually be insane for them to go for that trade. So just putting crazy ideas into their heads. And they actually don't take the bait, just lay down some vision.
Forcing TSM's hand now, knowing it could be, once again, another 50-50 as Reignover takes a bit of damage here, but prepping the Baron for his team to arrive.
This could be really risky. They may not have the Baron dead by the time TSM can engage. The Bardot will delay. Hecarim is coming, so is Shen. This could be another fight.
Ash arrow
Then Baron
ready.
in range, they pause it.
No flash or heal for Turtle.
Smite could come in, the hit actually goes over to Turtle with the last shot. Svenskeren doesn't have a way to get himself out. Chrono Shift is there, they're looking to avoid Svenskeren, and it wears off, he goes down.
They got Turtle.
Great timing so far coming in.
And Huni!
Svenskeren stays up, they're going for Reignover. Adrian on the top side now. Huni goes down, this is 50-second timers, and they're gonna finish out more Immortal members, and they may be going for the base.
Immortals get the Elder Dragon and the Baron, but TSM are gonna run through the base.
They already have the minions. 4 people's are Immortals it down. This game is impossible to really predict. This is probably it.
Reignover is basically throwing himself at TSM right now. There's nothing he can do to stop this, and he knows it. Heads back to the fountain for more HP to possibly make an even longer fight happen here at the Nexus turrets. He's got 16 seconds on Turtle, and that may not be enough. Reignover sitting in the mix, knows they're gonna have to start thinking about game 2 already. And Team Solo Mate is gonna take their time, think this one through before they take down the Nexus and take a game 1 38-minute win.